they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Earth is rising. Anxious Earth is rising. I'm so happy.
We spend our life searching for this sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
What the heck? There we go. Hey. Welcome to the Double Tribble channel. Today is Tuesday, I think. Almost 10 o'clock, 9:55 according to my clock. I checked my clock before I started. It's 2:56 Universal time. Universal Coordinated Time. Which is 9:56 Eastern Standard Time, which is where I am. I'm in New Hampshire. That's right, I remember now. I'm in New Hampshire. I'm surrounded by wild animals and forests and stuff like that out in rural New Hampshire. And I stream science and film and all kinds of stuff. Variety streamer? I don't know. If you're watching this on a VOD somewhere, like on a video that's been recorded on YouTube somewhere or somewhere else, this is a live thing. And it's just you're watching a recording of a live thing, so it means that it's going to be kind of scuff. You know, I'm going to make mistakes, and here at the beginning of the stream, I always just kind of waste time until I get going. So if you saw the description of the video, and I'm not talking about what you wanted to hear, just fast forward through the video, you find it eventually. So I did want to talk about several different things. It's been about 5 days since I streamed, which is pretty good. A lot of times I'll wait a couple weeks between streams, so that's pretty good. It's been warm around here, which is good, which is one of the reasons why I started the stream here. I was able to warm up the house pretty good. It's -2 right now outside. See, -2. Got up to just about freezing for a good part of the day, so That's good. And I was able to warm this place up. So it's 11.5 degrees now in this room, which is uncomfortable, but good enough to do a stream with, as long as I keep my jacket on, keep my coat on. So I had a whole bunch of things that I wanted to stream about today. But before I get to that, I'm going to do a sync test because I was running all kinds of different stuff here, and I don't know if my computer is keeping up with the audio and all that. So I'm going to do a sync test. This is kind of a ritual I do at the beginning of the stream. Takes a couple seconds. You can fast forward if you don't want to watch this. All right, looks like I didn't mess it up too bad. Looks like everything's in sync. Hopefully my mouth is in sync with the audio, because I know how that's always irritating when you're watching somebody and they get out of sync, and then it irritates me anyway, especially when it's just a little bit out of sync. It's disturbing to me. I don't like that, so I try not to do it myself when I can. I'm using old computers here and stuff, so it takes a little bit, a little bit of tweaking and finesse to get them to work properly. Yeah, the other day I wrote another thing using AI, which was kind of cool. I had to set up a daemon on my website, and so I had had AI write it first, and it was really close, really close to what it was supposed to be. So I only had to go back and forth with it a couple times, and after I installed it, I tweaked it up a little bit more, and so yeah, that's pretty good. It's at the point now where you can pretty much tell AI what kind of program you want, and it'll write a program that'll run at least, and then you can just tune it up from there. Or if you're not a programmer at all, you can even do it. I saw an ad on Twitch here somewhere where they're talking about that. I think it was on Twitch or YouTube, where somebody at one of the companies is selling something with AI that'll let people write their own programs. OpenAI has a thing called Codex, which is really designed for programmers, as a tool, for programmers to help them write stuff. But there was somebody out there who was trying to do something just for regular end users who don't know anything about coding at all, and which it's capable of doing, really. You tell it what you want, it'll write the program, you run the program, and if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then you tell it, hey, it did this wrong, and it'll correct it. So you don't have to know how to code anymore to write software, which is just amazing. It's pretty cool. It's kind of the same thing we did, with website. When the web first started, it was kind of like that. They had, all you had was a text editor, right? And you just typed in all of the HTML. There was a lot less to remember back then. There weren't a lot of command, stuff in it, but I could tell right away that it wasn't going to take too long before they started coming out with automated stuff to do that, and eventually it got to the point where you're just, like now, what they call platforms, right? You go to a platform, and it's all, you could just tune, basically design your own page, right? Facebook, I guess, was one of the first ones to do that, and whatever. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, the last stream or stream before last, I did, I talked about this film, Little Caesar, with Edward G. Robinson. And I was trying to remember stuff to do, and I forgot things, I get old, I forget things. So I wanted to kind of go back to that a little bit and talk a little bit about a couple of things that I had missed on the previous stream. So let me do that now. Oh yeah, by the way, I think I have this finally set up now where we won't be interrupted by ads, I think. I'm not really sure. If an ad plays, please type it in chat and let me know. Yeah, if you're watching on a video somewhere, this is a live thing and people can chat live. You know how that works, right? So hopefully we won't be interrupted by ads, and but you might get pre-rolls, right? If you come in to the live stream right now, you might have to watch a couple ads before you're able to watch the stream. In which case you're not hearing what I'm talking about anyway, because you're not here yet, right? So let's look at Little Caesar here. This little program here, this little show. You can watch the last stream I did. It's a 1930 film made in 1930. Edward G. Robinson and a bunch of other people. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the film, I did a pretty good review of the film. But one of the things that they do, they did a lot of close-ups and stuff like, when film first started at the beginning of the century, or into the 19th century actually, but really, the beginning of the 20th century, it was kind of like replacing plays. They just set the camera there, and the people would do their play in front of the camera. But it wasn't too long for them to figure out that, hey, we can move the camera around, we can do close-ups, we can do all these different things. And so in this one, you saw some of that. You saw them. They did a what do they call a rack focus with the subject moving, which was a new thing in this film. But there was one technique that they did here that I noticed in like silent films, and now in this talkie here, is that they do a dissolve. They there's something called cinematic grammar. It's in the title of my stream here. Cinematic grammar, and that's all the different techniques that filmmakers use to try to communicate a feeling or help the narrative or whatever, to help tell the story, right? And one of those techniques is a dissolve, where you have one scene on the screen, and then the other one slowly comes in and replaces it. You know what I mean? Here, let me see if I can play that here. Let me cue one up really quick here. Let me mute this. We don't need it. I don't know if we need the sound that much here, but yeah, you can probably hear it a little bit. All right, so this guy. Let me put this up here. VLC window. Can you see that? No, of course you can't. Let's see here if I can play that. There we go. All right, so this guy. This is the scene in the film where the robbers come in and rob the place. This party they're having. They come in and rob it. Right, so I'll just play the scene and I'll explain what's going on here. See it dissolving? Okay, so that was a whole bunch of dissolves one after the other, and normally when a film does a dissolve like that, they don't use dissolves too much anymore. But when it does a dissolve, that means that you're going from often a passage of time. You're going from one time to another time or another place, or into a dream sequence or whatever. It's there's today. That's what that means, right? That's what that technique means. When you have a dissolve, it's changing from one scene to another, or from one time to another, or whatever. In this case, they used it as if today, if this scene was done, they'd use cuts, right? They'd do fast cuts. There'd be people doing, running around shooting people, and then they'd cut to some other thing and cut to some other thing. It would just be rapid cuts, right? Real fast pace, the pacing of the film. That's another part of the grammar, right? Is the pacing of the film. And this one, it was a quick paced thing, right? They came in, they were robbing people. It was action, a lot of, the pace was quick, except they used dissolves, which are normally, passage of time or slow or whatever. So I wanted to call that out because it's kind of an unusual feature of this film. It shows the grammar, the grammar used for film was still kind of being developed. They were still trying to feel it out. And I've seen a couple of silent films that did this too. That would just use, instead of using a cut, they use a dissolve, and it wasn't saying that there was a passage of time or change of scene or anything. It was just like another shot in the same scene, but they did a dissolve. And I'm not sure what way they were trying to communicate. I mean, here obviously they were trying to communicate maybe, because you've got two scenes that get on top of each other when they do the resolve, the dissolve rather. It may have meant, they may have been trying to say that here all these things are happening at the same time, right? They even show the clock, right? They show a clock, then they dissolve. So I think what they were trying to do was to try to show that all these things are happening at the same time. I think that's what they were trying to communicate there. But audiences today, when they see that, it's kind of confusing. That's not what a dissolve means to audiences today. And that didn't obviously that didn't that's not what it means, right? That attempt to try to set that as the language of film didn't work. That particular thing, trying to say that dissolves were showing simultaneous things happen, that didn't pan out, right? Today, or like in the I don't know, in the 70s, or I guess it was, or 70s, I think they started this technique where they did a like Hollywood Squares type, like a Brady Bunch, where they got all they did something like that to try to show that that things happened at the same time. Today I guess they just do cuts, or they use other cues maybe to indicate that things are happening at the same time. Or they cut back and forth between two different scenes, like if there's something happening in this scene and something happens at another location, then maybe they show this thing, there's other parts of the narrative that give you clues that they're happening at the same time, and then they just cut from one scene to another and back and forth between the two scenes without an establishing shot in between to let you know that it's happening at the same time. They have an establishing shot. It's like where you show the outside of a building to let people know where you were at and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they will establish the two different locations with two separate establishing shots, and then once the audience knows, okay, this is what's happening at this location, this is what's happening at this location, then they'll just cut back and forth without anything in between, and then that might give you a feel that it's happening at the same time. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting because that technique or whatever was not settled. In other words, at that time, even by 1930, it was not settled. Let's see, we got a chatter. Let's see. Welcome, Spartan. Welcome to chat. Thank you for stopping by. Let's see here. My little chat window's a little too small to read. Let me get this back in here. Okay, Ivan Neo recommended your stream the other day, so here I am. Hey, thank you, Spartan. Thank you, Ivan Neo, for giving me a shout out at the stream. Yeah, I was there. He gave me a shout out, so I appreciate him doing that. He usually gives me a shout out when I'm in the stream. Spartan says, been watching a lot of old movies on Turner Classic Movies with Mom, as I'm here 3-4 days a week. Just saw Anchors Away and The Graduate. The other day. Oh, we're going to have a scene from The Graduate here in the stream tonight, maybe, I think. Actually, that's interesting that you mentioned that. Anchors Away, I don't remember that one. I know the title. I know it's a classic, but my brain is not remembering right now what. Obviously, it's about Navy or something, but let's see. Started looking into the film tech of the early 50s. Yeah, and that used the Technicolor in 1:3:3 ratio to differentiate the 4:3 TV ratio. From a cinematic experience of earlier widescreen. Yeah, they didn't. They did that. In fact, that's going to be one of the videos that I'm going to play here tonight. We'll explain that. They started in a very early film. It was pretty much all square, like TV, right? Same. It was just like a square box video, And maybe they do vignettes or something, or they wasn't. But then they started experimenting with the wide screen. There were several different Panavision. There are all kinds of these different methods that they did to try to get the wide format like that. Some of them even took the scene. On the film, you got the film and you got the sprockets on the side of the film. And it's normally the film is set up so you got the sprockets and then you have the scene just like that, and that's how it's oriented. And one of them took that scene and turned it this way on the film, so the film the sprockets would be on the top and the bottom of the frame instead of the sides of the frame, and that way they could just stretch it as wide as they wanted. But it required a special camera and a special projector, obviously, to run the film through sideways and everything. So there are a lot of different things that they did to get wide screen. And then now it just irks me that we these big tech companies, the phone companies are trying to get us to go to vertical. It's just insane. Every time I see it, I don't like vertical format. If it's just somebody like me just standing here talking, maybe, right? Maybe you can get away with vertical. But I've seen people at big events where they're trying to show a whole wide scene or whatever, and they're doing it in vertical, and I'm like, what are you doing, And if it's a short on YouTube, they force you to do it in vertical, It's just crazy. I don't understand why they do that. But anyway, I wanted to point that out, and then what else was in here? Oh, let's see. Spartan says, yeah, if I film something with my phone, I make an effort to hold my phone sideways for the proper widescreen format. Yeah, I do too, if I remember. Yeah, it's much better to do it that way. And it actually kind of, like, sometimes I want to post something as a short, just, for whatever reason. And almost everything I do is wide, landscape. So if I want to post it as a short on YouTube, then I got to do some, run it through an editor, do some process where I squish it and fill in the sides, or, who knows what, it's just a big pain in the butt to do that. So, on this thing, one of the things that I didn't talk too much about, this guy, Edward G. Robinson, he was he played gangsters and stuff like that, you know, which he did in this thing. And he actually played a lot of different stuff. But he was actually this film itself didn't have any. It was just all white people, right? There was one woman, and she got not a lot of lines, and so representation wise, it wasn't too good, right? And that's kind of the way it was back in, early, in the first half of the 20th century up until the 60s, and then it started to improve a little bit. It's still biased, but one of the things I didn't mention was about the women not being represented in this film, although there were quite a few films where women were represented pretty well, and I've actually streamed a couple of them here. So it's not, women were represented in some film, especially in the 20s. There was a women got the vote right around that time. Was it 1919 or something? So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of what we called women's lib in the 60s and 70s that was happening in late 20s and stuff like that. So women were getting represented in film to some extent, around that time. But even today, there's still bias, and like when they do the credits, if there are men and women in there, they do all the credits for the men first, and then they do the women, right? And stuff like that. It's still not fair. So this guy, Edward G. Robinson, he was actually very active politically, and he tried to improve things. He did a lot of civil rights work and stuff like that. And he actually got, when they were doing the McCarthy hearings and stuff like that, and even before that, he kind of got, apparently he got involved with like a ton of different organizations, like hundreds of different organizations. Eddie G was a real one. Yeah. Hi, Maddie. Welcome to chat. Thank you for stopping by. Yeah, he really helped out a lot with the civil rights and stuff like that, and he got into a little bit of problem with the McCarthy stuff, and he helped. He like financially helped, and actually worked and volunteered and all kinds of stuff for like hundreds of different organizations, and apparently a few of them were like had communist connections or whatever, or were communist fronts or whatever, and so it got him in trouble, and he got they call it gray listed. There was blacklisting is when they just completely cut people out completely, so they couldn't work in Hollywood at all anymore. He got gray listed, which is kind of maybe some people. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, he got in trouble because but he cooperated even with the hearing and everything, and named names, because he wasn't a communist at all. He just wanted to help civil rights and stuff, but he still got tangled up in that whole thing. A lot of innocent people did. So I just wanted to point that out. And what's interesting is that the last film that he did, let's see, Spartan says that Eddie / Gallagher, former SEAL member. Is that Eddie Gallagher, former SEAL member? Is that Eddie Gallagher, former SEAL member? No, this is Eddie G. Robinson. This guy here is Edward G. Robinson. He was a big Hollywood star, starting around this time, late 20s, and he had a really long career. And the last film he did was called Soylent Green, and there's a scene in there where he dies in Soylent Green, and after he did finish that movie, it was just a couple of months before he actually died in real life. So that was late 70s, I guess, 78, 79 or something like that, 74, I forget. So he had a really long career. Yeah, he's a pretty good guy. And they were just about actually going to give him a, one of those lifetime awards or whatever that Hollywood does and stuff like that, So yeah. So that's a few things I wanted to mention about that. So let's let me talk about film grammar generally. Soylent Green. Yeah, Soylent Green was a science fiction movie. Yeah, you spelled it right. Soylent Green. Yeah. Soylent Green was a science fiction movie in the mid 70s. We don't do spoilers here, by the way. So, yeah, there's a big spoiler in that movie. So please avoid that. You remember that being his last one? Yeah, yeah. Oh, I've seen it a few times. Yeah, yeah. It's a very famous movie. I think it's a sci-fi. So if you're into sci-fi, you know about Soylent Green. So yeah, it was very interesting that he died in the film, and they do that a lot in Hollywood. When you got an old actor, or somebody who's got a health problem or something like that, they'll put him in a movie and then put him in the narrative where he dies in the film, or you know what I mean, so that it's just as a Easter egg or what. It's kind of a morbid thing to do, but they do that. When they have an older actor, a lot of times they'll have him die. When they think that the actor is about ready to die, then they'll have him die in the movie, and then it's a weird thing that they do in Hollywood. They do a lot of weird things in Hollywood. Spartan says, I've only seen Soylent Green once when I was a kid in the 90s. Oh, cool, yeah. Like Oliver Reed in Gladiator. Oh, I didn't know about that. He passed away during filming in 2000, so they used CGI to finish his scenes. Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that happened. A lot of actors and stuff. It's apparently a dangerous profession. I don't know. There's a lot of pressure, and a lot of times they end up getting into substance abuse and everything else. So I think more actors die than the general population. It seems that way anyway. But let me play a couple of YouTube videos that I found that are Creative Commons released videos, so I can play them. And they talk about different cameras, techniques, cinematic techniques, and things like that. Let me see if I can bring this up here. All right. There we go. Hey, look at that clean cut. This one here is just a little short. Again, a vertical format, right? I don't know where these. This is from Avid. They make they do equipment, stuff like that. They're a vendor for the movie industry, and they did this. It's a comic thing. It's kind of an inside joke for people in the business, but it explains really just very briefly some of the major camera type techniques or camera movements. So dolly just means anytime you're moving the camera flat on the ground, side to side, back and back or whatever. They're showing it in and out here. But it's the term dolly means just anytime you're moving the camera. It's like imagine if the camera's on the tripod is on wheels, that you can just slide the camera around. That's kind of what a dolly is. And a pan is when you're moving the camera. The camera stays still on a tripod, and it just pivots back and forth horizontally. That's a pan. And then when you tilt the camera up and down, that's called a tilt. And you may have heard of PTZ camera. That's a PTZ camera is a camera that has a pan. Oh, here I got one over here. this one here. I've got it. I wasn't really planning on doing this, but so this is a camera that it's a remote camera that you can control remotely, and it has pan, which is like this, right? And it has tilt. You can do like that, but it doesn't have the Z. It doesn't have the zoom. But if you have a camera that has, they call it PTZ, that means pan, tilt, zoom. You know what zoom is, right? Everybody knows what zoom is, I think. So that's just what that means, pan and tilt. And then this one here is called you call it a boom jib, also called a crane. You just stick the camera on the end of like a boom mic. You know, you put the mic at the end of a boom. You've heard of that before. Well, if you put a camera at the end of the thing, at the crane or whatever it is, and move the camera around, that's called a crane or a boom, or they call it here a boom jib. Let's see. Let me go to chat here. Okay, he died of a heart attack at a pub in Morocco while filming Gladiator. Oh, okay. Oliver Reed, yep, okay. Maddie says, you could show a Busby Burleke sequence and show the different camera movements. Oh yeah, there are a lot of examples of that. I'll show you some. There's some videos here where they give examples from all kinds of different movies and stuff like that. Dramatic zoom, yeah. Yeah, there's one, it's not on here. That's kind of a complicated one. They call it a dolly zoom. Dramatic zoom is where you like if you're moving the camera towards the subject, you zoom out as you're moving the camera in, and what happens is the subject stays the same proportion and everything, but the perspective changes so that in that case the stuff in the back would look like it was moving towards the camera. You know, it changes the lens angle while keeping the subject the same proportion. I'm sure you've seen it before. Maybe they might have one in here, one of these examples here. It's a rare shot. It's very dramatic, and it's not used very often. But it is kind of effective if you have like one point or one moment in a film where you really want to show drama. that's a good one to use. And then truck just means moving the camera, you know, side to side. And then there's one called an arc where you like move it in, like if the subject is in the middle of a circle and then you're moving it around the edge of the circle. That's an arc. And a roll is like tilting it sideways. They call that if you move it while you're doing it, it's called a roll. If you just have it tilted to the side like that, it's called a Dutch tilt or Dutch angle. So I'll play this little short here. It's just they're saying, okay, here's what camera movement. Here's a camera movement guide, right? They're saying, okay, and then and they're trying to say that clients are stupid because they don't know the stuff. So this is their little joke that they're doing here. Client camera movement guide. So you see how the client just calls everything a pan, right? So that's their joke. Oh shit! I didn't get that up here. Hang on just a second. There we go. So their guide was explained them all, right? And then but they're saying that the clients, to the client everything's a pan, right? That's how clients describe stuff. So they're just kind of making fun of clients. They're saying that the clients don't know the right words or whatever. So that was just, you know, inside whatever for their thing. Let me see if I can play. Oh, here's one that's kind of short. This is just a minute video. This is from a guy called Cinema News. He's calling himself. He's out on YouTube. Okay, they're playing music here, so I've got it muted because I don't know if they, who owns the music. Even though they say here they've got it's Creative Commons, right, from Cinema News. There you go. And they just did this short little thing here about different cameras things, so you can see examples of them here. So it's this basic 7 camera shots. Close up, right? Everybody knows what a close up is. It's just the head of the subject usually. An extreme close up is where you just have a partial part of the head, or it could be anything. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be a person's head. It could be something else. Now they called that one an extreme long shot, but that's sometimes that's often an establishing shot. They'll show that kind of shot at the when they're changing scenes and they want to say, okay, now we're back at this city or whatever, and they do what they call an establishing shot. But a long shot really just means anytime the subject or the people or whatever in the shot are kind of insignificant to the thing. So like if there are any people down here, they're kind of insignificant, right? It's kind of just showing the environment, Now this one, they call that a long shot. That's not really a long shot. Some of these subjects are not, that's not really a long shot. It need to be further back for that to be a long shot. Let's see what else they got here. That's a medium long, or a medium. That's just a medium shot. It's not a medium close. You just say medium. These are all, I would call all these medium shots. So, thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Cinema News, for making your video available to everybody for free. Appreciate that. And it's not, it's not like they're so hard and fast, people the terminology is a little bit fuzzy in some spots. Let's see. More of a longish shot. Yeah. That was a weak long shot. Yeah, weak long shot. Yeah, or medium close long. Yeah, long shot. A lot of people say, okay, a long shot is anytime you got the feet of the subject, right? They call that a long shot, which is kind of true. And I looked at the Wikipedia article. They talked about long shot being anytime the subject is less significant or not as significant, or insignificant even to the scene that you're shooting. The subject is smaller, and you're showing the environment that the subject is in. So there's a lot of different ways to define it, but it's let's see what else I got in here. Oh, this one's kind of fun. This guy, it's a long one here. Maybe I'll just show a portion of this. All right, let me cut to here. Okay, so this is a guy. This guy does storyboarding. He's got a channel on YouTube called Beyond the Process, and he did this video on how to storyboard different shots. So when somebody's making a film, often they gotta communicate their idea to somebody else. Maybe a producer that they want to pay for the thing, or to all the cast. To say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. You got to communicate it, and they use storyboards for that most of the time. So that's what they're doing here. Let's see. Maddie says I'm a big movie nerd. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm into movies too. I like movies, so I do movie reviews here a lot, and stuff, and I get really nerdy about it. Let's see. Spartan says, "I'm guessing you have experience with camera work and tech. I grew up with a 35 millimeter Kodak and a few semesters in video editing, but nowhere near the knowledge you all have." Oh, okay, sure, Spartan. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California around Hollywood, and so it was kind of like osmosis, And I was into it, and my dad was into it too. He had a little 8 millimeter. I'm old, right? Right. So it was before they had video and all that. So yeah, I was always into it. I did a few little stupid shorts on 8 millimeter, and I've continually done different stuff on my YouTube channel for that kind of stuff is KXQE. So if you go to KXQE, you can see some videos I uploaded. Most of them are not produced. There are only a couple of them in there that are really produced videos. Maddie says, I worked in a video store for about 4 years during college. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good way to learn. Yeah, that's a good way to learn. You got customers coming in asking you questions all the time. You got to learn about that stuff. You got to learn all the details, what movie's what and who's the actor and everything else. Maddie says, that's all the further I got with it. Yeah. Yeah. I did work on one. Somebody was trying to produce some low budget thing, and I ended up doing the camera work and stuff on that thing. It was kind of a fun thing. That was when I was in high school, actually. That was a long time ago, and it was kind of fun. They were building a set, and they had these stuntmen out there who were basically the only ones who knew what they were doing. Were these stuntmen from Hollywood who came up and were, helping them out, I guess, and stuff. And one time when we had some downtime, the stuntmen were teaching us how to fall off a roof. So that was kind of fun too. Just having everybody in the crew just learning how to do stunts. It was funny. Let's see. I got more chat here. Maddie says, "That's I'm looking for a movie that has a red cover." Oh my goodness. Is that the kind? Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, customers are funny sometimes. Spartan says, hey, I was born in Hawthorne. Oh, okay, so you're right there too. Grew up near Santa Barbara. Yeah, Santa Barbara, where Michael Jackson lived, where his circus or whatever he called it there. Yep, I would take the old 8mm and sometimes VHS cams out and capture wildlife and sporting events when I could. Yeah, Santa Barbara, that's a pretty cool area up there. Spartan says, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, it's not like I worked in the industry or anything like that, and I just always had an interest in it, and blah blah blah. So watch a lot of movies, and I like to analyze. Sometimes I do. That's the problem, right? If you're looking at this kind of stuff in a movie, then you're out of the movie. Right? It takes you out of the movie, and it's not as fun to watch, right? If you do that. So a lot of times I'll just watch the movie just for fun, just as an audience or whatever, just to watch the movie, just to see how I like it or whatever. And then I'll watch it again and maybe look at some of this stuff. I also like to, when I do movie reviews and just watch movies generally, I try to look at representation, to see who, how they treat different groups, black people or women or whatever. Oh, that was another one that I didn't mention in that film. There was a scene in there where they used the word sissy, which is a derogatory term for somebody who is a man who is feminine or gay. So that was right in the movie. And that was a problem with film for a long time in society, right? For a long time until the late 20th century. So anyway, yeah, that's another thing that I do, and it's just hard to do all of that at once, to watch the movie and just kind of enjoy it as a viewer, but then also keep track of representation, and to keep track of some of these techniques and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to do just in one sitting. So you usually have to watch the movie a couple of times to get that. All right, so let's watch this guy's little video here. Now he does at the very beginning here. He's got a little thing. So the idea is this guy does storyboards, right? And at the very beginning of this thing, of his video here, he does a little skit where he has a There it is. Okay, so at the very beginning of this thing, he's pretending like he's got a director who is trying to explain to him what he wants him to do to make the storyboards. You know what I'm saying? So I'll just play the video. I think you figure it out here.
Just give me 5 minutes to talk to this island.
Sorry about that.
Hi, Nigel.
All right. Okay, mate. I only have a few minutes to go over these boards before I get called into casting. Ready?
Yeah. I got my trusty notebook handy. Ready
Okay,
to go.
good. I'm going to jump right into it. For the first shot, we're tracking left to right, following the actor running through the forest. It's nighttime and the rain is coming down really hard. We finish the tracking shot as she comes upon the entrance to a cavern and stops dead.
Okay, just a really...
Next shot, we cut to a high angle looking down on her as we reveal that something is watching her from the rocks above. It's let's make that a kind of a dirty shot. We don't quite exactly know what we want to do here, so draw the lower half of some scary-looking creature in the shadow, okay?
Okay, so when you say...
Perfect. So now we cut to a close-up of our scared girl breathing heavily. The rain's pouring down, and she doesn't know what the hell to do. She's looking around desperately, and that's when we pan right to reveal the pitch-black opening to a cavern. Should I go in?
Excuse me?
That's what she's thinking, son. Try and keep up, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry,
Now
so
we
could we...
switch to a follow shot from behind her as she goes into the cavern and disappears into the darkness. You got that?
I think so. Just
And then
to...
one final boom up to a medium close-up of the creature's legs walking out among the rocks. Are you with me?
I believe so.
Okay, great. Listen, I've...
Aside from his accent, if simply hearing these terms the director rattled off to me made you feel a bit stressed and anxious, please don't worry as I'm about to break down all of these shots and show you how to properly storyboard each one. Welcome everyone to Beyond the Process. I'm Lance Laspina, and with over 3 decades of experience having storyboarded films, video games, and commercials, I've had to learn how to properly indicate all of the various types of shots in the filmmaking process. Okay, now let's jump into each shot as quickly as Nigel was spelling them out at me. First, I'm going to replay what he said, and then I'll explain each shot afterwards.
For the first shot, we're tracking left to right, following the actor running through the forest.
The first type of shot Nigel mentions is a tracking shot, which means the camera is literally following the movement of the character and keeping them in frame the entire time. Now, I just want to point out that the real sticklers to the rule will often refer to a side-to-side tracking, as is in the case here, as what's known as a trucking shot. Whereas when the camera is either following behind a character or leading them from the front, it's referred to as a tracking shot. Honestly, to me, it's just a case of semantics, as the two terms can be used interchangeably without confusing anyone. But now it's time to see how I personally storyboard a tracking shot. I place 2 directional arrows, in this case pointing left to right, on the edges of the frame's borders. Usually when arrows are actually touching the frame, this indicates it's a camera move, whereas when arrows appear within the frame's borders, that usually indicates character movement.
Scribe makes step-by-step
Sorry
guides for
about
any
that.
process with AI. You know what's terrifying
YouTube
at work?
ads.
When you start a new job?
There we go.
Next shot, we cut to a high angle looking down on her as we reveal that something is watching her from the rocks above. It's let's make that a kind of a dirty shot.
A dirty shot always includes a visual element like a person's head or shoulder that's out of focus in the immediate foreground, while the main subject can be seen in the background. Now, it doesn't always have to be a body part. It could very well be anything like a rock or a plant in this case. To help make this more clear, let's take a look at some reasons why a director may choose to use a dirty shot. To establish spatial relationships between characters. To add visual interest and variety to a shot's composition. To emphasize the presence of another character without fully showing them. Lastly, a dirty shot can be used to help guide the audience's attention to what the director wants you to see by filling part of the screen with something out of focus, naturally directing our eyes to what is in focus. So in this example, we can see that not just the creature's body is causing the shot to be dirty, but also the plants and rocks in the foreground. Together, they not only reveal that something is watching her, but they also help direct your eye to the real center of attention, that being the female lead character down below. Before moving on, I have one really quick ask. If you guys are enjoying this content and find it helpful, please consider supporting us by subscribing to our channel, giving a like to this video, and sharing our content with a friend. Shane and I have been working hard to grow this channel and could really use your support, so thank you very much. Okay, now back to the video.
She's looking around desperately, and that's when we pan right to reveal the pitch black opening to a cavern.
Next, the director wants to pan the camera from the lead character over to the right to reveal what she's seeing. A pan, which is an abbreviated term for the word panorama, is a type of movement in which the camera rotates horizontally to either the right or the left. It does so on a fixed vertical axis and is usually in a fixed position, either mounted on a tripod or perhaps handheld by an operator. Now, admittedly, I can be a bit nitpicky when it comes to the definition of the word pan, as people tend to use this term rather loosely to describe a myriad of camera moves. So for example, someone might say something like, and then we pan up to reveal the character's face, when they really should have used the term tilt instead. Panning is left and right, tilting is up and down. Okay, rant out of the way, let's move on. There's also another type of movement referred to as the whip pan, which is essentially just a super fast pan. This is often used for comedic effect by such directors as Wes Anderson in his movies. In the case of our storyboard, the camera is slowly panning right to reveal what the character is looking at, that being the ominous opening to the cavern. As you can see from these two examples, I indicate a pan between two continuous frames by placing a large arrow pointing in the direction of the pan on each frame. I also include the word pan within the arrows so there's no confusion as to what type of camera move this is.
Now we switch to a follow shot from behind her as she goes into the cavern and disappears into the darkness.
A follow shot is a type of tracking shot which we looked at earlier. It's just a more specific way to describe exactly what the camera's doing instead of using the more generic tracking term, which encompasses a much wider range of camera movements. Because these terms are so interchangeable, I don't want you to stress about using them incorrectly, as similar to the trucking versus tracking debate, everyone will still understand exactly what you mean, regardless of which term you use. The precise definition of a follow shot is a specific camera angle where the camera seemingly pursues the subject while maintaining a relatively constant distance. Usually the camera angle is directly behind a character or object that is moving forward, but it can also be in front of the character, leading them as they walk towards the camera. Now let's take a look at the storyboard for this shot. As you can see, the camera is positioned directly behind our female lead, and I indicate that we're following behind her by using arrows pointing inward on all four corners. For those savvy viewers out there who watched my last video, you'll recognize I use the same technique to indicate a camera push-in. Essentially, a follow shot is the same thing as a push-in, but now we have a character moving within the frame at the same pace as the camera, and that's where they differ.
And then one final boom up to a medium close-up of the creature's legs walking out among the rocks.
Lastly, Nigel wants the camera to boom up the side.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape.
The side of the rocky cliff to where the creature is standing. Simply put, a boom shot, also sometimes referred to as a crane shot, is a type of camera movement in filmmaking where the camera is mounted on a mechanical arm or crane called a boom that allows it to move vertically up or down, as well as left and right. Among other things, they can be used for introducing characters, showing action sequences, or revealing large spaces. So in the case of this scene, we are booming upwards to slowly reveal the position of the creature we saw earlier framed in the dirty shot. We first see his feet, and then more of his lower torso as he turns and walks into an opening among the rocks before we get a chance to see his face. The way I indicate a boom shot is almost identical to how I indicate a tracking shot, only this time the arrows are either pointed up or down on the sides of the frame as opposed to left or right. Once again, I make sure that the arrows are touching each side of the border so it distinguishes it as a camera movement. It's as simple as that. Now, if you happen to miss my last video in the series on how to properly storyboard camera movement both towards and away from the subject, then you want to check out this video right over here. Before I go, I want to send a special shout out to director Nigel Crampton.
Okay, so that was his video. That's a pretty good, pretty well produced video there. That was pretty good. And thank you, thank you beyond the process for doing that. Did he say what his name was? I don't remember if he said what his name was in there. I think at the very beginning he did. Let's take a look here. Oh yeah, let me show the whole thing here. That this is a. See, he released it in Creative Commons, so we're able to redo that. Hopefully he used music. I think he's smart enough to know that to use good music in his thing. So hopefully that doesn't give me any problems. Let's see. There he is, Lance Laspina. Okay. All right, thank you, Lance, for doing it. Thank you for letting us do our thing. All right, let me get the chat here. Very cool video. Yeah, it was a really good one. I liked it. That was a good one. Spartan says, starting laundry and listening in. Okay, all right, AFK, got it. So yeah, if you're just tuning in, what we're doing is I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff on this stream today. Right now, we're concentrating on something called cinematic grammar. It's just the way that filmmakers use different techniques, zooms and dollies and camera movement and stuff like that to tell their story, right? And it's a lot of them have very specific meanings or evoke certain moods and things like that. So that's kind of what that's about. So this guy did this thing. He did a pretty good. Nigel Crank. I think that's him, isn't it? Is that him in makeup? I'm not very good at or is that maybe a friend? I don't know. I don't know who that guy is there. I don't think it's a real director. I don't know. I never heard of that guy before, Nigel Crampton. So I don't think it's a real director. I think it's somebody pretending to be a director, and it might be him in makeup. I'm not really sure. I can't tell. So. So he went through several different shots here, right? He did his idea, his thing, right, was how to storyboard these different shots. And something I learned here was a dirty shot. I don't think I've ever heard that name before. Where you have something in out of focus in the foreground, like this, right? This is. Somebody mentioned the Graduate earlier in chat, and this is a scene from The Graduate, and this is a dirty shot in more than one way, right? that's a dirty shot in more than different multiple meanings of dirty for that shot. But it's just it's what they call a narrow depth of field. Depth of field is when you have the maybe the subject is in focus, but the background and the foreground is out of focus. And they call that narrow depth of field. So the broader the longer or deeper the depth of field is, the more things are in focus. So like right now, my camera. I can't adjust that part of the camera, but it's set up so that the background is a little bit out of focus. I'd like to make it more out of focus than what it is because I got a bit of junk back there. but that's what it means. But and then if I put my hand up close like that, it doesn't have auto zoom or auto focus, so see that's out of focus. So this has my camera right now has a pretty deep depth of field. And the way you get a shallower depth of field, if I wanted to make the background completely blurry, if I had the right type of camera, I would open up the iris on the camera, and because of the way physics works, it makes it so that only a short depth would be in focus. So that's what they're talking about here with this shot, with this kind of shot, and they call it a dirty shot. And I just never heard that particular word before, or if I did, I forgot because I'm too old or whatever. But it's having something that's out of focus in the foreground, basically, is what he's talking about there. Let's see in chat. We got Maddie says, about to catch a toss on a 70-year-old movie. About to catch a toss. I'm sorry, Maddie. I don't know what TOS means. TOS. Oh, terms of service. Okay, about to catch a TOS on a 70-year-old movie. Oh yeah, yeah. This is not TOS, but there are parts of this movie that would definitely be TOS on Twitch. Yeah, definitely. So. Let's see, and this is how the guy said he would storyboard it, right? He'd basically just draw what it is. So and this is kind of interesting here. He used that same little diagram that we had over here with this thing. He just snatched that little thing and used it in his video. I thought that was kind of cute that he did that. So I don't know who the original is on that. Did he give credits here? Maybe hopefully he's got credits in here for that, or maybe that's just public domain or something. I don't know. Somebody drew it and put some work into it. I don't know. Maybe Avid did that, drew that, and just put it out there for free for folks or something. I don't know. Trying to see if there's any more. Oh, this boom. We called it a boom shot. Yeah, that's just where you move the camera on the end of a boom. He didn't actually show it here, but and the names kind of change, a little bit. He's saying a follow shot is just basically where you're following the subject, right? It could be a truck. They call it a truck shot where it's moving sideways. That was one of them that we showed earlier. And if the truck shot, if the subject is still, then it's just a truck shot, right? Right. Here's the subject. Here's the camera. If the subject is just standing there and you do a truck shot, then it's just kind of showing the scene where it's just the camera's passing it. But if the subject is moving with the camera and the camera is moving like that, then it's a truck shot, but it's a follow. And I think he was kind of explaining that a little bit in there. And then you've probably seen this before if you're familiar with Spike Lee, his stuff, Do the Right Thing, and a lot of other cool films he did. He came up with a new follow shot, which is very bizarre. The first time I saw it, it just freaked me out. I'm sure it freaked out a lot of people when they first saw it. I wish I should have clipped a copy of it before I did my stream, but when you do a follow shot, sometimes you'll see them do a medium follow shot where they just show maybe from the chest up or the waist up or whatever, and if the camera's in front of the subject and the subject is walking down the street, then you can kind of tell that the subject's walking because their arms are moving and everything else, and you can kind of see that they're walking, right, as the camera's keeping up with them, ahead of them, and shooting them. But Spike Lee did this thing where instead of having you have a big platform and everything that the cameraman and the camera and all the equipment and all that kind of rides on, the dolly part of it that goes, and then the actors are actually on the ground in front of that, right, and kind of walking towards it, and as it pulls away, right. What Spike Lee did was he put the actors on the dolly mechanism too, on the truck. So he shows the actors kind of just standing there, and it looks like they're walking, but they're not. They're not. They're sitting on the platform. So they're pretending like they're walking, but they're not. They're not moving. They're not doing anything. And it was kind of a weird shot. And anyway, he made that up. That was a shot that he made up. I don't know if anybody else. I think I've seen a couple other guys do that. Borrow that from him. But this is it's just an unusual shot. I don't know what the mood was. I forget what the mood was that they were trying to do with that. It's kind of comedic. So when you see it, it's kind of comedic. It's like when you see these when they try to show actors on a stage pretending to run when they're just running in place, and you can tell that they're not really running, they're just running in place, even though they try to do a camera angle to make it look like they are. Stuff like that. Let's see if we had anything else in here that I wanted to mention. I don't think there was. Oh, just generally, on storyboarding. They had a scene here from The Shining, I think it was. This is one with a kid on the tricycle. I think that was from The Shining. I think the hospital one. I don't know where that came from. Yeah, this other one, I don't remember what he's got his list down here, I guess. Somewhere. I think he said his credits. Did he? Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't credit his scenes here. I don't know. But anyway, what's going to happen going forward now? Storyboarding might not even be a thing anymore. or they might have AI do storyboarding. People in the industry are probably used to that, So, seeing storyboards and stuff like that. So maybe they'll continue to use them. But going forward, AI is going to be able to do a lot of this stuff. So this poor storyboarding guy is going to be out of work here pretty good. A lot of people in the business are going to be out of work. Eventually, everybody, including the producers, everybody is going to be out of work because of AI. Everybody generally in society is going to be out of work because of AI. But particularly in the movie industry, because I don't know if you've seen Sora, right? I talked about Sora here. I think I've shown some videos and stuff like that where you type in a prompt and it will make the little short film that you want. And, going forward, you'll be able to just tell it, okay, show, like a director could just type in prompts, show me the actor doing this and that, and you could create characters. Okay, give me a character that looks like this and has these attributes and blah, blah, blah. And just basically just type in, or even take a script, an existing script, and feed it into AI, and the AI will just produce the movie, That's kind of stuff is going to be happening. The first thing, though, and maybe they're doing it now even, is to have AI do all the storyboards for them, where they just describe a prompt for each, scene in the storyboard or whatever. Like they the AI would listen to what that director was saying, and the AI could produce the storyboard. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be upset about that, but that's what's going to happen. It's going to be, and eventually it will eliminate even the producers and everybody. Everybody will be eliminated, and you'll just have an AI that you have a TV with an AI built into it or whatever, right, at home. And you say, okay, Mr. AI, show me a movie about, sci-fi, with lots of action and it's on the moon, or something like that. And the AI will generate the movie for you right on the spot and play it for you right then and there. And you can watch the movie, and it'll probably do a better job than Hollywood, because that's what AI does. It does everything better than humans do. Not now, it doesn't, but a lot of different things it does better than humans. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting going forward. A lot of people are not reacting well to that. They don't like, especially people who like, doctors and lawyers. They spend. They go to college for 4 years and then graduate school for a while, or even, PhD and everything like that. Put all this time into learning this, money and everything, and to learn how to do this thing and getting trained and, knowledge and everything else. And then this AI comes that somebody can use for free or $10 a month or whatever that can do virtually the same thing. That's, that's kind of, it's going to be difficult for society to absorb. Let's put it that way. It's going forward. It's going to be very difficult. I mean, I kind of have throughout my whole life. I got into computers very young, and stuff like that. So I'm kind of tuned into that. Yeah, new stuff comes along, and you got to be able to relearn, and forget, and and like now, I've spent a lot of time learning how to program and stuff like that, and now I don't have to do that anymore. I just tell the computer to do it. I just say, okay, write me a program that does XYZ. Maybe I tune it up a little bit, but going forward, you're just going to, anybody can do that, right? Anybody will be able to write a program just by telling the AI what kind of program they want. I had this little controller here, and I was trying to find a game that I could play with that controller, like a flight game or something like that, but I couldn't really find the exact game I wanted. And I asked the AI, I said, could you write me a game that's kind of like a flight simulator but not so accurate? And I kind of described the game I would want. I said, could you do that? Could you write that program for me? And it said, sure, just give me more outline of this. It was like, it was ready to do it. It was ready to write the program. I didn't actually do it, but that's how it's going to be going forward, and so it's going to take some getting used to. This, throughout the years, I've kind of been in tune of how technology has affected society. And this isn't a new thing, really. I mean, this goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, really. How all this stuff kind of affects society, but it's just happened. Now it's going to happen at such a broad scale and so quickly. It's going to be something. It's going to be quite a ride just to see how this whole thing pans out. There's just going to be a lot of people who, as I said, spent their whole life learning how to do something, and then boom, they're replaced by this AI, all of a sudden. So how do people react to that, and especially if they've invested a lot of time and money, if they've got these big college loans and everything else, and now they're not going to be able to work, Yeah, so it's gonna require quite a change in society, and there are going to be a lot of people who are just going to, react poorly to that. It's going to be like neo-Luddites. It's going to be, hey, get this AI out of here. I don't want this AI. I like doing this or whatever. And the thing is that it's not that you can't still do those things. A lot of them, right? Like if you like to do art, you can still do art. You don't have to tell the AI to do the art. You can still make art if you enjoy making art or whatever it is. The thing is that nobody's going to pay you to do that anymore. That's the problem, right? So if you make your money making art, or if you make your money doing storyboards, or if you work in Hollywood making movies, any of these things, you won't get paid for doing that anymore, because AI can just do it for free or very cheaply, So that's a problem. So as a society, we got to come up with a way to help everybody to survive, who don't have, millions of dollars tucked away somewhere that they can live off or whatever, you know what I mean? And I don't see that our current system is doing that at all. They're not even thinking about it. They're not even talking about it. They're not, some of them probably are, but it's going to be quite a ride to get that figured out. It'll probably require a revolution, I think. I mean, this is a revolution, right? It's a revolutionary change, and it will probably require a political revolution. We'll probably have to take down what we got now and start with something completely new in order to address this. And maybe that's why the politicians aren't talking about it, because they know that's what's coming down the pike here. Let's see if I got another one here. Oh, this one's really cool. This one's a little bit longer, and it's let me show you here. This is this is on YouTube. It's from Colleen Laird. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I got dyslexia, so I can't do that kind of stuff very well. But it's this one is Creative Commons also. Now it's got this music here, so I don't know. I guess I'm not going to worry about it. I'll worry about that later when YouTube tells me or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But I'll play this one. This one's really cool because it's about Chinese or Japanese cinema, which is really Japanese cinema is very high quality and a lot of it. And everybody thinks of when they think of Japanese cinema, they think of what's Godzilla, right? the monster movie, and it's kind of poor quality, blah blah blah. But it's not. It's if you see the original Godzilla and watch that thing, that was a really good film. I mean, it's fantastic. It's just amazing. It was a very well-made film. Maybe the monster and some of the special effects are dated or whatever, but it's a very well-produced film and very, you can really get into it. And what happened with that Godzilla film is that there was a guy, I forget his name, somehow got the rights for the U.S. market and just hacked the thing to death and just hacked it all up and just made a really cruddy film out of it. So American audiences saw Godzilla as like a low budget film or something. That's their impression of it. But if you go back and watch the original Japanese version of that film, it's a really well made film. Anyway, so the Japanese have their own style and everything else, but this video here talks about a lot of the different techniques and stuff. So I'll go ahead and play that here. So it's Colleen Laird, and this is Creative Commons, so we're cool to do that. And comments are turned off. Okay, that's all right. Normally I avoid stuff that has comments turned off, but that's okay. This is cool. They were very nice to make this available, so we'll watch it here.
Contemporary commercial filmmakers have inherited a long history of filmmaking that encourages audiences to forget about the role of the camera as an intermediary between us and what we see on screens. More often than not, we are meant to forget the very idea of the camera, to experience a film as if it were something happening in real time before our very eyes. Structuring a film in a way such that the presence of the camera is downplayed or made invisible creates a suspension of disbelief that transforms artifice into a realistic and believable experience. Although the idea of total escapism into film has never really been true, filmmakers have been engaged in the art of helping us to forget the material production of cinema for a long time. With the exception of avant-garde, political, and experimental filmmakers who subvert film conventions to create various modes of resistance cinema that breaks down the norms we have come to take for granted, commercial film has refined techniques that make us forget that what we are watching is not just artificial, but often simply impossible. In this video, we will start to train ourselves to work against convention, to start seeing the boundaries of the frame, to see the physical construction of the camera shot. Generally speaking, every shot in a film contains 4 attributes: framing, depth of field, color, and movement. These are umbrella categories, each with their own subset of techniques that are tied to norms of associated, culturally informed meaning making. That's right, the camera itself is an active player that helps create ideas and stories, just like the narrative and the mise en scène. Let's consider the biggest category first: framing. Framing refers to the camera frame itself, its shape, its position in relation to the mise en scène, and where it occupies space on set. This translates to aspect ratio, masking, camera distance, camera angles, and camera height. Aspect ratio refers to the dimensions of the film frame, the ratio of width to height. In early cinema, the aspect ratio was more or less standardized, but over time, filmmakers have created and experimented with a variety of options, all of which impact visualization and style. Fundamentally speaking, the aspect ratio determines the basic shape of the film, which in turn determines the composition of mise en scène. But in so doing, aspect ratio can also set up different emotional overtones as well. Films early on were limited to the 4:3 ratio, also known as the 1.33:1. While this was just the norm at the time, filmmakers since can choose to use this ratio to tap into an aesthetic which, by now, is linked to a kind of classical, nostalgic, or sometimes novice or seemingly more genuine feel. Once cinemas and filmmakers developed widescreen aspect ratios, they were able to capture more lateral space, which also meant more landscape. This aspect ratio lends itself to scenery and big sets, which were readily used to create vast visuals to reinforce big narratives. Now, due to aesthetic legacy, this aspect ratio just feels epic. While widescreen aspect ratios project well onto cinema screens, Televisions brought different standard aspect ratios, and a return to a more square shape. Even when we watch films made for this intended shape on our current widescreen TVs, they carry with them that television feel. Savvy filmmakers can tap into this aesthetic to reinforce ideas they are exploring in their films, as well as other standards and expectations set by various aspect ratios in cinema history. In addition to the rectangular shape of the camera frame, cinematographers can also manipulate the boundaries of the frame to create new shapes and conceptual ambiguities through the technique of masking. This includes masks that suggest other viewing apparatuses, which in turn inform ideas about perspective and context, or more emotional effects connected to the scene at hand, or again, aids in transitioning from one scene to the next, an assist to editing. Connected to dimensions and borders, camera distance also determines how much of the mise-en-scène can be captured within the camera frame. Close-ups are used to show details and draw focus, especially to actors' emotions. Sometimes, however, this also feels too close for comfort. Extreme close-ups can be more dramatic and can heighten emotions in a scene. They might be used as well to signify specific clues in the narrative or to highlight particular ideas. Medium close-ups feature an actor's head and shoulders. This distance is often used in close, but not too close, conversations that we have been invited to join. Medium shots show the actors from the waist up. The increased distance allows for more inclusion of the set and background, helping to highlight the actors' movements, their surroundings, and whatever meaningful connection might exist between them. The distance also allows comfortably for multiple actors in a frame. On that note, 2 actors in a single shot is called a two-shot, regardless of the camera distance. So this is both a medium shot and a two-shot, or a medium two-shot, and this is both a close-up and a two-shot, or a close two-shot. Over-the-shoulder shots are a particular kind of two-shot commonly used to frame conversations, and it can give us a comfortable feeling of listening naturally to a conversation as if we were part of the group, rather than being right in the middle of the conversation. The medium long shot, or three-quarter shot, takes in the actors' bodies from the knees up. This creates more space to include the set and more actors, and helps us to see the careful design of the film world. Medium long shots take us farther away from the emotions expressed on an actor's face, giving us the space to perhaps start projecting our own feelings into the scene. Long shots keep the human figure in the frame such that we can still see the actor rather well, but prioritizes setting and landscapes. Although the long shot is used sparingly in big-budget studio and television productions today, especially since they are hard to see on the small screens of our tablets and cell phones, the long shot has been a staple characteristic of Japanese cinema. In extreme long shots, or wide shots, the human figure is almost lost entirely. Such shots are used to focus on the environment, to create emotions linked to the environment, to anchor us in specific places and time, to assist with aspects of narrative such as when characters travel great distances, and often give us a moment away from the action to reflect, feel, and transition from one scene to the next. Often extreme long shots, establishing shots are the first shots we see at the beginning of a film and in new scenes. They are used to set up the context of a film or a particular scene, which can include physical space, emotional tone, information about particular characters, or important plot points. Although it is common to use a wide shot, some directors go in the opposite direction and employ close-ups for establishing shots, putting us in the thick of things before taking a step back. Before we move on to the last 2 aspects of framing, let's review our vocabulary for camera distance. The last 2 aspects of framing are the camera angle and camera height. While most of the film is generally shot straight on, camera angles add to the visual experience to create an additional layer of meaning. High-angle shots are positioned from above, with the camera looking down on the mise-en-scène. This can create a sense that we are looking down on a character from a position of power over them, or to make a character look smaller and more sympathetic. Cameras placed very high up, usually on a crane or perhaps now on a drone, creates a sense of distance from the actors, sometimes used to put us in the position of an ethereal, distant observer. Low-angle shots are positioned from below, with the camera looking up. This can make characters and their surroundings look bigger and more powerful. This often puts us in the positions of victims or of children. Canted or Dutch angles are uncommon for a reason. Tilting the camera off a horizontal axis puts us off kilter and is often used to suggest that something is wrong. For example, if it is the perspective of a character, perhaps they are drunk, drugged, or just ill. Finally, filmmakers also play with camera height. In addition to the common choice to put the camera at eye level, cameras can be positioned high or low to create mood, meaning, and different points of view. Before we move on to the other categories that make up the attributes of the shot, let's review framing as a whole, since there is so much to consider. Let's focus on a familiar scene from the mise-en-scène video. In this clip, try to identify aspects of framing. Although there aren't any masking effects, you can pay attention to the aspect ratio, camera distance, camera angles, and camera height. Okay, let's compare notes. Many of the shots in this scene help to put us in the perspective of the actress, as if we are looking around through her eyes. These types of shots have an additional name, the POV or point of view shot. We look around the room at her eye level to take things in, and then switch to a close-up of her face to re-establish her point of view, as well as to see how she feels being in this space. A series of slight high-angle shots suggests that she is looking down at a variety of creepy objects, but these shots are close up and bring us unnaturally close to highlight the unpleasant feeling created by the props. By contrast, the medium close-up of the conjoined dolls is at a slight low angle, shot from a height lower than eye level. In this framing, the dolls become menacing, and the shot suggests a powerful, metaphorical importance. Finally, the medium-long shot, also a two-shot in a way, brings us out of her perspective to take in the set. Positioned with the actress off-center, the width of the shot highlights all the empty space to the right, an emptiness that becomes significantly important later in the film when our actress walks down the same hallway. There are three more attributes to the shot to consider: depth of field, color, and camera movement. Depth of field is created by manipulation of the camera aperture, an adjustable hole in front of the camera lens that determines how much light travels through it. A large aperture lets in more light and creates what we call shallow focus. This allows cinematographers to highlight specific elements of the mise-en-scène, with everything else blurred. A small aperture reduces the amount of light to the lens and creates deep focus, in which everything in front of the camera is clearly visible. Choices about depth of field can create different moods or encourage us to focus our attention on exactly what's in focus. And cinematographers can manipulate that attention by switching between depths of field within the same shot through a technique called rack focus. Although color is also an attribute of the mise-en-scène, the camera and camera accessories also impact colors of a film. Before digital photography, filmmakers could choose from a variety of film stock, which resulted in different saturation levels and sharpness of contrast. So, for example, in transitioning to color, Ozu Yasujiro preferred Agfa film stock, which made the color red stand out more dramatically. Cinematographers also use filters to manipulate color palettes in their shots, which can change the feel of a scene dramatically or create otherworldly environments. Finally, there is camera movement, which is how the frame moves. In digital filmmaking, it seems like the camera can be and move anywhere and everywhere, but without the extravagant possibilities of CGI, there's just a handful of common camera movements to consider. They are pans. The camera moves the frame from side to side, much like we would turn our neck without actually moving our whole body. Tilts. The camera moves the frame up and down, as if we were looking up and down, again without moving our whole body. Tracking shots. The whole camera apparatus does move through space, often on a track, forward and backward, or to the side. Handheld shots. The camera is held in the hand, a common staple of the found footage, horror genre, and documentaries. Steadicam shots. The camera is off tripod and mounted to a stabilizer so that it can move through space much more fluidly than just in hand. And crane shots. The camera is mounted to a crane, which allows for dramatic movements between high and low spaces, or side to side up high. Now let's practice recognizing and thinking about the 4 attributes of the shot in this next scene. Altogether, those attributes are framing, depth of field, color, and movement.
ちえちゃん、下見ちゃダメだよ。下見ちゃちゃんと両手で捕まってよ。手すり持たないと危ないよ、ちえちゃん。ちゃんとほらほら。
やめてよ、触らないでよ。This scene from Nishikawa Miwa's 2006 mystery film Sway, or Yureru, is a crucial moment in the film's narrative and highlights the motif of looking that underlies the plot. In it, the woman Chieko falls off a swaying suspension bridge to her death in the river below. Her death is suggested by the mise-en-scène through the combination of the shot of the rushing river and the following shot of the man Minoru alone on the bridge above. But the big question of the entire film is, did Minoru push Chieko, or did she fall by accident? The second question of the film, and one of particular interest to the police, is, did Minoru's brother Takeru, the man with the camera, see what we, the audience, did not? Was he an eyewitness? What do you think? What do the shots in this scene tell us about the moods and emotions of the various characters? What do the shots suggest about who can see what? Who are we meant to align with in this scene? How might this set up expectations about, for example, who might tell the truth in court? Did Takeru see what happened? When we pay close attention, a big part of the mystery of the film is solved in this scene, even though we don't actually see what happened. But the answer isn't revealed through an individual shot alone. Rather, an interpretation of the scene and the film as a whole comes from considering all the shots together, their relationship to one another, and how they convey information through a sequence of events. This sequence is created through the art of editing.
All right, so that was a really well produced video. She did a really good job on that. They did a really good job on that. That was pretty cool. And they got into more stuff than just shots there too. She was, doing a narrative and how you put them together and stuff like that. That last one, what was it called? Sway, 2006. I'll have to look that up. It looks like a pretty good film. So yeah, she did a lot of them. Repeated a lot of what the stuff was, and she had a lot of new things in there too. So that was pretty good. So that's let me give her credit again here. That's Colleen Laird. So everybody give her a follow here. I'll subscribe to her right now. So she got interesting stuff there. So that's pretty cool. Let me show you there. Colleen Laird, yeah, on YouTube. She's put a lot of work into that. So, yeah, she runs a lot of different things. She talked about that focusing, depth of field, and stuff like that. And she added to that, saying that you can do what they call rack focus, where if you have a narrow depth of field, you can do a rack focus where you can switch things that are in focus. You know what I mean? Like on my little camera here, I can't adjust the depth of field on my camera, but I can, if I want to, I could come over here and decide what I wanted to focus in on. You know what I'm saying? I can come in here like if I was like right next to the camera, right? And I'm here next to the camera, and so I would want my own mug to be in focus. But then, in the background there, I have Mylar up on the back of the window there, on that doorway and window. So I can focus on that instead, and then I would be out of focus. See, and by moving it back and forth, you can. A lot of times they'll do that when you have like two characters maybe that are talking. You have one character in the foreground talking. A lot of times, or like maybe if there was somebody standing behind me and I'm not looking at them, but I'm talking with them. They would show me. And then they change the focus, and they show the person in the back in focus. This isn't working too well because I don't have the right kind of camera equipment here, but you get the idea, right? You're changing focus in order to draw attention to one thing or another on the thing. But you need a shallow depth of field to do that, and my camera doesn't have an adjustable depth of field, so I can't really adjust it. But she explained it again. She explained what I had explained before about the aperture. You make the aperture bigger, you get a shallower depth of field. You make the aperture smaller. It's adjustable, right? It's like this, right? You make real big aperture or small. If you make a small aperture, then everything's in focus, right? A big depth of field. So that was a well-made film, I think, that little video that she did there. So thank you, Colleen, for doing that. That was pretty cool. I think that's all I had here for videos. Yeah, that's all I had for videos for that. But yeah, the thing that got me thinking about that was that scene in Little Caesar, where the grammar that they were using back in that scene in Little Caesar, they were using dissolves in a completely different way than we think of them now. So it's something that can evolve, just like a language can evolve. And people do, and then there are certain techniques that kind of come into fashion. Zooms were a big deal in the 70s, right? They would zoom, do a slow zoom. A lot of times you see slow zoom. Decade or so ago, they did this. I call it a jerk zoom. I don't know what the official name is. It's where they zoom really quick in or out or whatever, on some action scene or whatever. So, usually those are like fads usually. And the handheld camera, that's another one. I wish that would go away. That's not good. I don't like that. Where they take pictures and they have a handheld camera and it's shaking, everything's shaking, and it's just the idea is to add tension to, right? It's just a cheap way for a filmmaker to add tension to their scene, but it's not good. I don't like it. I don't think they should do that. And I wish I could find a really good a filter or whatever that could take and I could just run it through a filter that would just take the shake out, because they have that capability now, with these different tools and stuff. I would use that all the time on films and stuff. So, all right. So I think that's all I have on film grammar. But it is kind of like a language, that filmmakers speak, and they have some of them have their own little dialects of the film, of the cinematic language. They have their own, techniques and stuff that they use that kind of put their signature onto a film, and then some of them are very very unique, and you can watch a film, even if it's like a new film, and you could watch it without knowing who the director was. And if you're really into it and stuff like that, you can say, oh yeah, that's done by that director. I didn't recognize that technique and blah, 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 So, all right. What else did I have in my thing here? Let's see. All right, I guess that's all for cinematic stuff. So now I'm going to talk about some of these other things that I had in my title here. I had what is lib. I had my C-SPAN. I called C-SPAN today and gave him my thing. And told, I called up C-SPAN and said, it's terrible, Congress. So I will play. I can play that. And about a month ago I called in too and did it. But what is a lib? I put that up there because I noticed some younger people using that. The word, I think it's short for liberal or liberation. Back in the 70s, they called it. They used the word lib in women's liberation. It's short for women's liberation. They call it women's lib. I don't think it's. I looked in the dictionary under lib, and they had like librarian. I don't think that's what that's what they mean when they're talking about lib. I just know that is my mouth too. I did a bunch of stuff. I should probably check my sync again. Is my mouth in sync? I don't know. I don't know if it's in sync or not. Maybe I should just not worry about it. Yeah, I'm gonna check it real quick. Hang on, just a second. It's off by a little bit, but it's probably not noticeable. All right, we'll go with that. So yeah, I noticed that some people are using that word, and there's been this historical struggle over that word, liberal or well, it comes from liberation, being free, right? That's the root of the word. I don't know what we look up the Latin for it, whatever it is. Or no, that might be from French. That might be a French word, actually. But it's, being free, right? That's what liberation. Going back to like what a classical liberal is someone who is believes in freedom of the individual to do stuff both economically and socially. But like classical liberalism means in the economic sphere means, free markets, free trade between countries, that sort of thing. In the political scheme, it's kind of shifted from time to time. Classical liberal would be, as I said, would be like free markets, free trade, individual freedoms, individual rights, that sort of thing. And then in the 60s, it became more associated with just somebody who was left wing. Left wing would be called a liberal. But it was also kind of twisted into fiscal policy. Liberal can also mean giving freely, or you know what I mean, or giving liberally, plenty, or something like that. You know what I mean? And so, in the 60s and 70s or whatever, liberal meant somebody who not only was socially wanted things to be free to do stuff, free love, right? Free everything. There's free, freedom to take drugs, whatever. But it also meant free fiscal policy or money flowing freely in the government, like, having more taxes and more spending on things to give money to people, So that's kind of what it turned into in the 60s and 70s. And then libertarian kind of took that for their name too. Libertarians want liberty. That's the word, right? Liberty on economic issues as well as social issues, right? They're pro-choice and everything. that's what they're pro-choice and everything. They want pro-choice for drugs, or you can do anything you want as long as you don't hurt anybody. That's their thing. But the problem is who is somebody who's, when you're talking about libertarianism, who is somebody? What's harm? There's a lot of open questions on that. So, but that's kind of a different thing than liberal. Libertarians. It's their position is very. People are very, very confused. And now they. Last time I looked, at least the party, they're just basically just racist. Now it's totally twisted now. So, but the word liberal. Oh, you know what I have? I actually have a command you can type into chat. Let me see if it works here. I don't know if my bot is working. Lib. Let's see what that does here. There it goes. So I typed it in, and it says liberal as a noun. It has multiple meanings, right, as I said earlier. But one who is open-minded or not strict in the observance of orthodox tradition or established forms or ways. That's from Merriam-Webster's 9th New Collegiate Dictionary. I don't remember which edition, but 9th. There we go. Yeah. So that's probably a 20, 30-year-old dictionary, but it just means free. Somebody who's more open to change, and that's kind of the core difference between liberal and conservative. Liberal is more open to change, wants more progress, that sort of thing. More open-minded. Conservative is someone who doesn't like change, who wants things to stay the same, and wants the established, traditional, that kind of thing. So that's the main difference to it. So I'm a little confused as to what, and I hear people who are ostensibly on the left using the word lib derisively, which is just very confusing to me. I don't understand why they're doing that. And so I put that out there as a question. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know why some people are doing that, using that word derisively, because it's, at least from my perspective, my values, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to want to improve, to want to make things better, to want to, change and stuff like that. And we were talking earlier about AI. It's gonna challenge people a little bit. A lot of people who are liberal and open-minded and progressive and all that kind of stuff it's gonna hit home for them. They're not gonna be able to do their work or whatever they've done before. AI is going to do it instead, and so they're going to say, "Wait a second, maybe I don't want change. I want to be a conservative now. I want things to stay the way they are." It's going to be interesting. It's going to this whole AI thing is just going to overall, it's a good thing though, right? This AI thing, overall, it's like it'll do a lot of work for us that it'll make life easier in the long run. It's just the transition's going to be pretty rough. And so anyway, that was my question about lib. I just was really confused about that, and maybe they're trying to, these words that have that affect people in power and stuff like that often get like populism. Or populist. Oh, I think I got that one in there too. Let me see. Populist. Yeah. Populist. Populist is a noun. A populist is a believer in the rights, wisdom, and virtues of the common people. From the same dictionary. So that sounds pretty good, right? And a lot of people, I hear a lot of people use that word derisively, but it's actually a good word, a believer in the rights, wisdom, and virtues of the common people. So, a lot of these words that have meaning, particularly ones that if adopted or people accept them, the values behind those words will affect people in power, like Elon Musk, he's not a populist, right? He didn't want populism. He didn't want rights and wisdom and virtues and all that for the common people. He wants to be the one with all the power. He didn't want everybody to have power, right? And Trump and all the rest of them, right? They don't want that. They want to concentrate power. They want autocracy. They want dictatorship, right? They want, or oligarchy or whatever. They want stuff, oligarchy. So they want power concentrated. And so these words like populist and liberal, they don't want change, right? They're on top. If things change, they might not be on top after the change, right? So they don't want change. They like things the way they are. Or if there is change, they want to be the one who's controlling that change is happening or whatever. So liberal is not, that's another one of those words that they're probably coming after, to make it seem derisive or bad or whatever. But a lot of people, especially those in the media or people who have power, will try to make the word populist seem like a bad word, And a lot of times what they try to do is conflate that word with other terms like a demagogue. Someone who's a demagogue is somebody who pretends to be a populist, somebody who says that they're for the people who are actually not. And I'm sure you know who the main guy is for that right now, right? And fools people. And I don't know how many. A lot of people get fooled. A lot of people know that he's fooling people and think that they'll be the ones who benefit from fooling the people, and stuff like that. And so a variety of different people who follow that a corrupt person like that. But anyway, I was just something that I wanted to mention and talk about because it just happens all the time. I see this. I did run across just the word neoliberal. That's been around for a while, the century, I guess. It started as a word maybe 1990s. I don't know when it started. But it was just a way of describing somebody who pretends to be a classical liberal, somebody who pretends to want, free markets and open stuff and all that kind of stuff, but just basically uses it to fool people into giving them more power or whatever. So it's, that's my interpretation of what neoliberal is. I don't think there's a fixed definition on that one. So maybe that's what people are talking about when they say lib, but it's an ambiguous term. So whenever I hear people say it, I'm like, especially somebody on the left who is using the word lib derisively, I'm like, hey, you're liberal. That's, pick up a dictionary, Jeez. So, all right. Well, let me see if I can find my my YouTube video or my YouTube call. I mean my C-SPAN call. Yeah, this is the one this is the one today that I did. Let's see. Yeah, let me see if I can get that queued up. All right. No, wrong thing. No. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so this is John. He's at C-SPAN. Anyway, I called in. Here's my call. I don't know if this is going to work or not. The volume might be messed up, but I'll just play it here and hopefully it'll play. Here we go.
Any social media platform, pick your favorite who posts about this show every day, and you can join that community. And we try to highlight those posts occasionally throughout the program as well. So maybe another avenue for you. But thank you for the enthusiasm, and hope you do keep calling. This is Ronald in the Granite State Independent. Good morning.
Yeah, John, thank you for taking my call. I'm angry right now, very angry. We had a president who took almost $1 billion in bribes from the Arabs, then proceeded to attack NATO and try to tear it apart. NATO, for those of you who don't know, NATO is the most successful defensive alliance in the history of history. He attacked NATO. He went after Greenland. He was days away from massing our troops on the border of Canada in Minnesota. For those of you who don't know, that's why he picked Minnesota to stir up all this stuff. So he could have an excuse to put our U.S. troops on the border of Canada and make Canada the 51st state he thought he was going to do, right? And then Congress supported him. He's a dictator, and Congress, you know what Congress did? They passed $1.5 trillion a few weeks ago. Here we are dicking around with this ICE funding.
Ronald, I appreciate your passion. Just watch your language. Are you going to vote in 2026? And what do you think will be the results come November? Do you think this is a referendum on Donald Trump in 2026?
Well, you know what happened after they funded his $1.5 trillion? A day or two later, he announced his plans to sabotage free elections in 26 in November. You remember that? He announced it. He says nationalize the elections, fix the election. That's what he did. I'm angry at Congress because you know what they said? You know what Congress said? They said, here, Mr. Dictator, here's $1.5 trillion so you can go and continue doing your evil dictator things. That's what Congress said.
That's Ronald in New Hampshire. This is Tom in San Jose, California. Good morning.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, that was my call. You notice as soon as I started talking about all that money, that $1.5 trillion that they passed and all that, he started getting antsy because C-SPAN has been avoiding talking about that through the whole thing. They mentioned it. Oh, by the way, Congress passed, we're not going to have a shutdown. They passed this thing, and I don't know if they said how much it was, but it's $1.5 trillion. Huge amount. And they have been dicking around. Dick. When I say dicking around, I mean dicker, right? It's a short for Dick. He didn't like me using that word, but I mean dicker. They were dicking around with this ICE funding, and the ICE funding is like just a tiny fraction of a percent of the 1.5 trillion that they just passed without any discussion at all or anything. They just passed it. And so they gave Trump $1.5 trillion of money, no strings attached, and said, go ahead, do your thing. We don't care, we did our thing, although all these people have been bribing us, we sent out that money to them. Oh, wait, we got an auto mod here. Wait a second. Okay, I'm sorry, Spartan. Your thing got caught with by the auto mod. I don't know why. Spartan says, as a former baseball player and EMT medic, my baseline function was to do what was best for the team, for others. I cannot stomach watching or listening to this orange turd and his incompetent administration speak in broken syntax and with no moral integrity. Yeah, it is. I mean, we're all right. Anybody who has any sense of decency whatsoever is sickened by this whole situation, and it's and now I'm seeing C-SPAN. If you go back and look at all of the questions that C-SPAN has been asking, after this whole thing happened, where Canada finally Kerry in Canada gave his speech and said, I don't know if you guys heard that, but basically Canada said, "Fuck you, U.S. If you're gonna threaten us with military, invasion, fuck you. We're gonna align ourselves with China," and that's what they did. So now Canada is aligned with China instead of the U.S. And it was horrible. And NATO is all messed up now. They're off doing their own thing now. If we got attacked by China right now, I'm sure a lot of NATO members would say, "Fuck you! You've been fucking us over. Go ahead, you fight them on your own. We're not going to help you." I'm sure that's what they do at this point. So it's really screwed up, and NATO is what has really kept us out of World War III for 6 decades now, or whatever it is. Longer than that. What is since the 40s, 80 years. So he's just incompetent. And I think the reason why he did that, I think it was, Minnesota is located right there in between. If you look at where Minnesota is, it's between Detroit. You got Detroit on the east of Minnesota. And where they're building all the electric cars and stuff, and then on the west of Minnesota are the Dakotas, where they're doing the shale production and stuff, shale oil. And the Arabs don't like either of that, right? They want to sell their oil on the market, so they don't want the U.S. producing shale oil. And they don't like electric cars, obviously, because electric cars don't burn oil. They're doing electricity from the sun or whatever, or windmills or So So if we something got stirred up in Minnesota and we ended up putting troops there, and then Canada responded by putting troops on the other side of the border, that's, and a conflict broke out in that area, it could take out, in one conflict, they could take out the shale oil production and the supply lines for the electric cars being built in Detroit all in one thing. The Arabs would love that, So I think that's what happened, is the Arabs bribed Trump and directed him to try to do this thing, and he's doing it. Let me catch up in chat here. Spartan says, I ask myself daily how a human being with an IQ above 75 and an intact backbone can stand there and say, yeah, this guy is okay. I'm a... whoops. Wait a second, what happened here? And say, yeah, this guy is okay. I'm a middle-of-the-road type guy. Treat each other with respect. Yeah. And Spartan says, but guess I have to get dirty. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like people get frustrated. Obama gave a talk about this recently. And it's like, when the other side is doing all this dirty stuff, if you start doing dirty, then they win, right? Because that's what they want. They want a situation where rules, people aren't following rules anymore, and everybody's corrupt and blah blah blah, right? And that actually helps wealthy people, because wealthy people, the way they influence, the way they exert their powers with money, right? Obviously, right? And if people have, a high standards and stick to their values and have a moral position and all that kind of stuff, they're not going to take bribes. They're not going to do just anything for money, right? They'll have lines that they won't cross and all that. But if people are all corrupt and doing evil things like that, then the wealthy people can do more with their money. So they want that. The wealthy, that's what the wealthy people want, to corrupt to an extent. They want to corrupt populace and corrupt people so they can do that. And then also, when people are corrupt like that and doing unethical things or illegal things that are against the rules, then the political establishment can use that against the people. Also, they can say, "Hey, do what we want to say, do what we're asking you to do, or else we'll arrest you for doing these corrupt things." You know what I'm saying? So it's just a total mess, and it just ruins society. Obviously, right? You know how that works, right? But guess I have to get dirty. Yeah. No, we don't want to do that. We don't have to get dirty. The orange turd in the punch bowl needs to be removed from the punch bowl by any means necessary. Yeah. Well, any legal means, right? Any nonviolent legal means, obviously. I use that word. I wrote a letter to the editor some time ago, and I used that phrase, by any means necessary. And the editor said, "Hey, you don't want to say this, And I said, "Oh yeah, okay." It's like, yeah, you got to, in these times, you have to specify, right? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you said by any means necessary, you'd say, of course, by any legal means, by any nonviolent legal means is what you're talking about. But today, you got to be careful. You got to be, I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny, really. It's a horrible situation. I'm willing to do the unspecified manner of necessary. Yeah. Nah, you don't want to do that, because then you're part of the problem, right? You get it, right? If you do that, then you're doing the corrupt thing. You're doing the whatever. It's like the when they did this redistricting thing, Trump told all the Republicans, redistrict all your districts to make it favor, do all this gerrymandering so that the districts are all twisted around, so that you get more seats in Congress. The politicians picking their voters instead of the voters picking the politicians, right? And the Democrats, rather than taking the high road and saying, "Oh, wait, no, this isn't right. We're going to organize to whatever, and maybe we'll run some of our people as Republicans or whatever. Trying to do something legal. At least within correctly." They just said, "Oh, we're going to redistrict ours too." So now what we end up with is a situation where the overwhelming majority of seats in Congress are not chosen by the people anymore. That sucks, doesn't it? So it's better to lead by example and try to do things with the rules or in a non-corrupt way. So it's harder sometimes, maybe, to do that. I mean, obviously, if you're attacked, right? These people in Minnesota were pretty much close to the situation where they had to defend themselves, right? They were almost there, right? Obviously, if they're gunning people down in the streets, you got to defend yourself, right? That's and everybody should be organizing right now for that possibility, right? In late 30s Germany, that happened, right? And that wasn't that long ago, right? That they have, they were coming after people and killing them just all over, and so. Like in this during the civil rights movement, there were the Black Panthers were they were carrying guns. They used their Second Amendment right to carry guns because the cops were literally going out there and killing people for without any summary execution type stuff. And so they had to carry guns. But it's better to, like Martin Luther King took it, was kind of like the other. They were both on the same side as in terms of what they wanted to do, but the Black Panthers were more militant, and Dr. King was more, civil disobedience and protests and awareness and all that. Spartan says. True. The challenge is really learning the Constitution and acting effectively within the law. Yeah, you can act within the law. The problem is obviously they're not right. They're not following the Constitution. The Supreme Court isn't following the Constitution anymore. Obviously, Trump at the executive branch isn't following the Constitution at all. And now the Congress is supporting the president. So what do you do with that, right? You can't, there's, and the president, right, as I said in my call to C-SPAN there, the president's going after elections now. He knows he's going to get creamed in the elections, right? Probably even in the primaries, we might have a whole bunch of Republican candidates who are anti-Trump now, winning in the primaries, and so he's going to get creamed in November. He's they're definitely, with all that's going on. If we have free elections, okay, caveat there. If we have free elections, Trump, there won't be very many Trump supporters left in Congress or in the House, right? And a lot of the senators will go away too. So, and he sees that, he knows that, and he's trying to basically just get rid of democracy completely and just completely sabotage the elections, so that he can try to hang on to power. And if it's really extensive, I don't think this is going to happen, but if the Democrats were able to pick up 2/3, or Democrats and maybe a few Republicans or whatever were able to get 2/3 in the Senate, then he's out. He's gone, right? Trump would be gone. Although I question now whether the Democrats would even do that. I don't think I think they want to keep him in power. They want to keep him in power because the longer he's in power, the more money they get, the more donations they get, the more people give them money for their campaigns and everything else when he's there. You know, they're using him to fundraise. You know, that's pretty sick. I think even if the Democrats had a solid 2/3 majority in the Senate, they wouldn't kick him out. They wouldn't convict him. They would, you know, maybe the House would impeach him and they'd go through the kabuki theater, and then they'd say, oh, you know, come up with some excuse and keep him in there. I honestly think that. I think that's where we're at now. You know, it's like democracy is like, you know, not even on their radar. You know, preserving democracy or any of that stuff. And the ironic thing is that. You know, the more power that he consolidates, the more irrelevant they become. You know, if we have a full-on dictatorship where he's just got complete control over everything, you know, and we've got you know, ICE or military or whoever in the streets gunning people down and just taking out opposition, you know, violently like that, and he just had complete, you know, control, force by force. Then the elections become irrelevant. You know, that here in New Hampshire, our presidential primary becomes irrelevant because he's just going to stay in for life, right? You know, C-SPAN becomes irrelevant. All of this becomes irrelevant. We certainly would lose Twitch, you know. If Trump had the power, he would shut down Twitch in a heartbeat, you know. So and I guess that kind of leads to my next thing here. Let me before I go there, Spartan says at a certain let's see, at a certain point, if not already, have deemed themselves an enemy of the domestic nature, and may well be addressed as such. Says, I'm like an antibody that is designed to react to infections like this. I no longer recognize ICE as a legitimate law enforcement agency. No, a lot of people don't. No, they're not. Obviously, they're not. And that's another thing. He when I did my call there, you know, John cut me off when I started talking about the $1.5 trillion, because they're, you know, that's their bread and butter, right? Is the more spending that the government does, the more money that all of them make. You know, the people at C-SPAN, the people, you know, everybody in a 202 area code, they just make a ton of money, right? That's where their money comes from, is from taxes and people and spending taxes on stuff that on their cronies that end up filtering the money into the whole, you know, the pecking order or whatever of bribes and stuff. So so he kind of cut me off there when I was talking about that. Yeah, what they're doing right now, that huge $1.5 trillion basically got passed with no discussion. You know, it wasn't discussed. You know, I'm sure most people, if you told them, you know, what's going on with the spending and all that, they'll say, oh, they're dickering about ICE, you know, or whatever. But it was like $1.5 trillion just went through without anybody saying anything about it, no strings attached, and they gave it to the dictator or wannabe dictator, whatever. and then this tiny, less than 0.5% of that amount is what goes to ICE, or goes to ICE, or maybe even the Department of Homeland Security as a whole. I'm not really sure. It might even be that. but it's just a tiny, tiny fraction that they're talking about. And they had all this money. They had this $1.5 trillion. That's a lot of leverage, right? They could have asked for a lot of stuff. The Democrats could have said, hey, you know, we want to take all his power away. We want to kick him out of office. You know, they could have made any demand they wanted to at that point. And because if he doesn't have the money, he can't do evil stuff, right? You know? So why they didn't use that? They didn't use it at all. They just handed it to him for nothing. They didn't get anything in return. Zip. They just gave the money to Trump. It's $1.5 trillion. And now they're pretending they're doing this kabuki theater with this ICE funding and saying, oh, we're not going to give you the ICE funding unless they wear name badges. You know, it's like, what? Doesn't matter what rules you make at this point. You can tell them they can't wear masks. They got to do this. It doesn't matter what rules you make at this point. They're not following the rules. I'm pretty sure it's against the rules to shoot down citizens in the street. I'm pretty sure that's against the rules. They're not following the rules. So what are they doing? It's all kabuki theater at this point. They're just, you know, there's you know, it's not going to make any difference what rules they put in there attached to that funding, because he's not going to follow the rules. He's you know. And as I said in my call there, right after he signed that bill and he got that 1.5 trillion, like within a day or two, he was out there saying, "Hey, I'm gonna sabotage the election. We're gonna nationalize the election." So, yeah, you know, it's like, so I don't see how anybody who thinks they're a Trump supporter at this point. I mean, really, you want Trump to count the votes? That's what he said he wants to do. That's what when he says nationalized election, that's what he means. He means he wants to count the votes. Okay, really, you think that's it? You think that's a good idea? Really, even the Trump supporters, right? You think that's a good idea for Trump to count the votes? Yeah, you know, it's just amazing. So. We're at a spot here that's just it's unprecedented, really. I mean, we haven't been in this kind of situation since the Civil War, where things have been the country's been so screwed up. I don't think we'll have a civil war, you know, like that. I think it would just be, basically just dictated. It's Nazi Germany, right? He's following Mein Kampf. That's his playbook, right? It's Mein Kampf. That's basically what he's following, you know. So that's where we're at. But everybody should, I think, wherever you are locally, I think you should be organizing, a French resistance, you know, at this point. Get that organized now, you know. Wow, you still have the ability to, move, travel, or talk and communicate and do all kinds of stuff. Get organized for a French resistance, because if they, bring in troops into your area and you get occupied, by federal troops, you're going to have to be able to, get like some of the marginalized groups. Find ways to protect them and get them out of the country or get them to a safe area, stuff like that, Anyway, so we're at an unprecedented point right now, and it kind of leads me to my next point about this. On my title there, I said channel rules that say no politics. Every once in a while, you stumble across a streamer or somebody who has. In their rules, they'll say no politics, no discussion of politics on my thing. And when I see that, I read that as no democracy, they don't, because we're at a point right now where if you are being quiet, you're supporting him, Silence is consent. Silence is support right now. Even if your stream, you try to make it happy and whatever, good time and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but it's difficult to justify trying to be happy when we're in this situation. You know what I mean? When people are being gunned down in the streets, we're just about to lose our democracy, and Twitch will go away. I don't think they understand. They're not thinking 2 steps ahead there. It's not too much more steps until he shuts down Twitch, and he sends out a tweet or he contacts Bezos or whatever and says, I don't like what they're doing on Twitch, shut it down. and then what do you do, right? You gotta speak out. If you like Twitch, if you like your stream, if you like doing this thing, then you gotta speak out. You gotta, it's if you're saying no politics, no discussion of politics, that's, if you're not participating, you're freeloading. I hate to put it so bluntly, but that's what it is. If you're not speaking out, if you're not, voting, you're not participating like that, then you're freeloading. And the problem is that if enough people are not lifting the thing, then it's going to collapse. It's not going to work. So, and I really do think that Twitch would be in the crosshairs, if he got more power. Let's see. Spartan says, let's see. I'm like, okay, yeah, I read that. Okay, I concur. Okay, Spartan agrees. Okay, yeah, yeah. I'm sure a lot of people agree. That's another thing too. Is you try to avoid mass media. Any outlet that has a sizable audience, or large, is from a large organization like quote unquote mainstream media. They're going to be just like C-SPAN is, right? They're going to be favoring less democracy and more autocracy. So anybody who gets even on Twitch here, if you get somebody who has a couple thousand viewers or whatever like that, they're I think they're compromised, right? They're especially if they are making a living out of it or whatever, then they're kind of under the thumb of the people with money. So I think it's better to try to support smaller outlets and go to websites. Don't go to platforms. Go to websites. Where people have stuff, and it's a little bit more difficult because you have to sort out if they're reliable information and stuff like that. It takes a little bit more work. You have to consume a little bit of what they're saying, and then double check it all. But it's a lot easier now. I mean, we've got AI, right? They can do a lot of that, a lot of the heavy lifting on that kind of stuff. So it makes it a little bit easier. I mean, you could take, if somebody like writes an article, say, that says a bunch of stuff, and you really don't know if the information is correct or not. You can feed that into AI, and AI can do a lot of the fact checking for you, or you can do it yourself. You can just go through the article and figure out what they're saying that are facts, what's opinion, and sort it all out. And if you check it out, and a lot of what they're saying is factual and is true, and and that happens over and over a few times, then you can say, okay, that's probably a reliable source of information. And the other thing is, the more you know about stuff, the more that when you're watching mainstream media, you are not getting informed. They are trying to keep you dumb. They're not trying to inform you. They're trying to waste your time. They're trying to distract you. So the more you actually learn, the more stuff things that you actually learn about how things work and how history and everything else, the easier it is to spot when somebody is giving you something that's not true. And I think that's a lot of the problem with at least in the beginning, with a lot of the MAGA people, is they didn't have a lot of experience. You know, they weren't as enlightened or as educated or whatever. And so this demagogue come by and give them a line of shit, and they believed it. You know, now a lot of them are waking up. You know, they're like, hey, why are we trying to go to war with Iran? You know, why are we doing all these tariffs? We don't like taxes. Why are you doing that? You know, it's like, you know, Second Amendment. Wait a second. Wait, you know, they don't. You know, it's during his first term, he came out against this. He came out and he said, what do you say? He's just, you know, there was a shooting or something, you know, where the Second Amendment popped up into the news for a little bit, and he said, well, the problem is all this a due process, you know, and all this. He says, and he actually said the words. He said, take the guns first and do the due process later. It's like, wait, what? You're going to go take people's guns, right? So all these MAGA people who support the Second Amendment, they either didn't hear that or whatever, but they voted for him again, and now he's doing it. He's trying to take, you know, they shot a guy. They shot that kid who was at the protest carrying open carry, and they shot him. You know, it's like, what? Okay, do you support the Second Amendment? And your guy's shooting people, you know, who are exercising their rights. Now what? You know, it's like, so I don't know. I think some of them are so screwed up, or, you know, just so rooting for their team, they've completely lost any anchor to any type of morality or anything else, you know. I like this whole Epstein thing, which is just a huge distraction, obviously, right? It's like, okay, what would happen if they found files and they found a video, they had everything, they had for 100% that Trump was child molesting, right? He was beating these kids and having sex with them, doing all these horrible things to these kids. Okay, full on pedo, right? Then what? Then what do you do? You know what would happen in that case? The MAGA people would begin to try to normalize pedophilia. That's what they would do. In fact, I've heard callers on C-SPAN call up and start talking about saying things like that, saying, "Oh well, men will be men," you know. You know, it's like they're trying to normalize what was going on that island, you know. So it's really screwed up, and then the media just goes along with it all along, you know. I just don't understand. So the best thing to do is to not consume any of that media, not to you know, listen to any of that stuff, or just try to learn what the facts are. A good thing that you can do is to go to the news feed, the news like AP and Reuters and like that, and try to just get the news feeds. You know, where they just kind of just give quick articles or whatever about what's going on and just the facts type of thing, not as much opinion, and where you can just pick out the information yourself, and then maybe go to other sources, go to Wikipedia, go to, you know, all the, you know, other places to try to verify that information and learn more details about it and stuff like that. That I think is the best way to do it. Spartan says, cockroaches that need to be escorted from the face of this earth. Yeah, that's pretty lousy, and they're defending them too, which is just crazy. So I think that's just a big distraction, that whole Epstein thing, because nothing will come from it, right? The people who are implicated are so wealthy that they can just pay people off, and people are so afraid of them or whatever, and just won't. They'll just let it go. You know, it'll come out. They'll say this person did this horrible thing, and And the news will say, "Oh, look at these puppies at this show here. Here's another story over here." On C-SPAN, you won't believe this, but on C-SPAN, they actually had when it came out shortly after this whole thing broke, with Trump, trying to invade Canada and Greenland and saying he was all powerful and all this stuff happened that we, and NATO, reacted, and when that whole thing happened, C-SPAN started running all kinds of weird. First they had something on abortion, then they had to try to distract people, and they literally had this article or this segment where they were talking about something about the First Lady and Christmas decorations or something. I'm like sitting here. They're literally doing a thing about shiny objects. So you couldn't make this stuff up. It's just crazy. What are you doing? So I don't know. So I needed to rant a little bit. I hope I didn't get people too upset with my opinions here. But yeah. Any questions? I don't know. Yeah. It's good to talk about this stuff, though. You try to be, respectful and all that kind of stuff. Try not to be too hyperbolic or whatever when you're talking about it, and and then we need to be a little bit more careful about our language. I remember years ago, I used to have this phrase that I would use. If somebody at work did something stupid or something or whatever, I'd say, yeah, they should be lined up against the wall and shot. It's a hyperbolic thing, just as a joke or whatever. But you can't say that stuff anymore. You can't say that. And like we said earlier, we need to remove him by any means possible. Well, 20 years ago, if you said by any means possible, that would mean, okay, 25th Amendment, impeachment, or, force him to resign. There'd be, that's what you'd think of, right? So you got to be careful now when you say your language. You got to, don't be hyperbolic, because hyperbole is becoming reality now, It's just incredible. So, all right. Well, I guess I've gone long enough here. How long have I been out here? Almost 3 hours. So had quite a spectrum of stuff that I talked about today. We didn't have any ads, I guess. I guess that thing worked. I changed my settings on the ads, and we didn't have any ads as far as I know. Nobody complained about any ads. I didn't see any blinky lights or anything here saying that we had any ads, so that's good. But everybody probably got pre-rolls when they came in, I imagine. All right, I don't know if I have. It says I have 7 people here. I don't know if they're really here. If I have those people here. Let me see if there's somebody we could. Yeah, Walking Stick Library is out there. Let's give her a raid here. Oh, before I do that, I got to do my stuff. Whenever I do my stream, I always have to, do my credits, because I use stuff and I got to follow the rules and blah 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 blah. So let me do that here. All right, can you see that? Did that work? No. That didn't work, did it? Sorry, hang on. We get it. There we go. All right. So these are my credits for my stream. Recorded. That's okay. That's right. Okay, I got the right date. Kind of. That's the stuff we talked about. There's my sites. Here's some. Oh, this whole stream here is released under Creative Commons to the extent that I can. I played some videos there that might be under different license, so you know how that works, right? Copyrighted material, maybe, I don't know. I don't think I used a lot of these things, but did we do any web? I think we did some Wikipedia pages, maybe. I don't know. So there we go. That's my credits. So I did that. All right. So now let's see if we can do a raid here. Oh, E-Room. Hey, how are you? Been lurking with Legos. Oh, so you putting together Legos while you're watching. So that's how you're able to watch so many streams. I was wondering how you get the time for all that. So you're double tasking there. Yeah, I do that a lot too. Sometimes I cook and do whatever while I'm watching. It was cool when you said dicking with on TV show. Boss move, OG style. Nice. Yeah, it's to me it meant dickering, right? It's short for dicker, but you know, there's a joke that David Letterman told once. He was talking about his experience at a car dealer, and it was a woman salesman, and he said, well, we talked about the car a little bit, and then. And then I went into the office with her to dick her. Is that that's still politically correct, isn't it? I don't know if we can tell. I'm sure that's. Oh, content warning. I might say some bad words. Oh my God. Hey, Legos are, Spartan says, hey, Legos are my occasional decompression working on the space shuttle with Hubble set. Wow, space shuttle, cool. I bet that one's going to take a while to do that. So yeah. Yeah, I did say that. C-SPAN has gotten weird. If you watched C-SPAN 10 years ago, people could use the F word and everything else, and they didn't care. It was, it was free speech, And now, I mean, I heard one of those hosts once get on somebody for using the word hell, Hell. One time, the one of the hosts cut me off for using the word damn. It's like, what are you doing? It's crazy. All right, let me get out of here. Let me try to figure this out here. We'll raid Walking Stick Library. Let's see. I don't need to play my squirrels video. We'll do that another time. So let's see, raid Walking Stick Library. Let's see if that works here. Eram says, I custom built Lego chess and game sets. They're pretty nice. Yeah, those are very cool. Yeah, you should check out Eram's stream. Oh, I should shout out everybody here. Yeah, if you're not following eRoom, give him a follow. Do I need? I already typed in my thing here. Yeah, wait, I can do this. Hang on. I want to give eRoom a shout out here. Yeah, you should check out his stream. He talks about Legos. He opens his place with this candy, egg candy, and words on stream, and trivia stuff, and everything else. Spartan, do you stream at all? I'll give you a shout out if you stream. Let's see who else we had in here. Maddie Holmes. I think Maddie streams. Let me give him a shout out here. And let's see here. I think that was it. That's all I remember. Hope I didn't miss anybody. No, he just transparent eyeballs, aka observer eyeball. Yeah, okay. All right, Spartan. Well, I appreciate you stopping by and listen to me blabber here and rant for a little bit. All right, let's see if I typed in Walking Stick Library's name correctly, and we'll give her a raid here. All right, raid has been created. Okay, a few seconds here. We're walking through. Thank you everybody for stopping by and appreciate you going on the raid here with Walking Stick Library. Thank you. Oh wait, we're still thinking about it. It's still thinking. All right, here we go. I'm gonna push the button. Here we go. Bye. Oh, I didn't do any. Which just type in your own raid call, I guess. Take care. Bye. See ya. Thanks for stopping by. There we go.